Hey everybody, it's that Sunday School Girl of thatsundayschoolgirl.com. I am delighted that you have pressed play to check out the lesson with me for this Sunday, December the 6th. Let me just say that some of you probably saw a notice up on my pages earlier that I was anticipating a guest today. Didn't quite work out logistically, but if you know me, and if you don't know me very well, now you just learned something about me. I just hate to be defeated. I would not want that at all because we're trying to study. We're trying to be great students, right? So this is my attempt to get something up so that we are ready for class on Sunday. Listen, I hope that you had a fantastic week. Mine has been busy. I think that most of you know that I am a first-year law school student, so it is finals time, and it is everything that the boogeyman promised that it was going to be. I've had coffee this week. I've been up late, up early. I'm very conscious that this morning I did not make my bed. Like right now, the bed is unmade. And when I came out and looked in the living room this morning, I'm like, did you really just leave the outlines and the note cards and the laptop just like everywhere? And the answer was yes. You see me today. I have been out in sweats. I went out in public on a weekday in sweats. I'm even here with you right now in full-blown sweat. So that is kind of what my life is right now. But I so appreciate you all for just being patient and again being so supportive. You are absolutely so incredibly amazing. Listen, let me just let you know this. The last couple of weeks, we've looked at relationships in our lesson. And last week specifically, you saw Paul when he got to Macedonia, met new friends. God allowed him to meet new people, people who would be there. He was able to work with them and serve with them. And God knew just what he needed. And then there were two friends, Timothy and Silas, that came and joined Paul in Macedonia. And the lesson text told us that after those friends got there, he was able to kind of let go and give himself exclusively to the preaching and teaching of the gospel. Why did I just share that? Because I am so blessed to have amazing family and friends who are getting around me in a very special way for this month of December to support me as I go through taking my finals, etc., who are going to help me to free me up in a way to do that. So for the balance of the month, it is the intent that you will meet some of my family, some of my friends who will do the lesson review with and for me to cover me during this time. So I hope that you'll enjoy them. What I am most excited about is that you'll see such a diversity of personalities and diversity of gifts. And so this ministry is so blessed because everyone connected to it does not look like me. So it won't be all female. It will not be all same ethnicity. It won't be same church background for the folks that we have lined up. So I hope that you will enjoy and be as blessed as I know that you will be from the lesson review. And you know what? I'm thinking about like doing this once a month. This is really fun. So if you would like to be a guest on that sundayschoolgirl.com for one of the upcoming videos in 2016. Again, I'll pick one person a month if they're interested persons. Then again, I may be drafting people. You just never know how this will work. But if you're interested, let me know because I would love to share your gift with others and connect you with other people in this community. Listen, by the way, if you are new around here, welcome. You have joined one of the largest cyber community for students on the World Wide Web. And I'm so glad that you are here. This video comes each week for 3 reasons. Number 1, to encourage you to make Sunday school part of your regular weekend routine. Secondly, when you go, that you'll be able to quickly engage in the dialogue because you will have studied, which makes you a valued participant when you get to Sunday school. Lastly, when you leave, we understand how to activate God's word in our everyday lives so that we can face life's challenges. Listen, I understand life throws you all sorts of curveballs. As a matter of fact, we're going to talk about our time just a little bit today, but I encourage you, whatever time you can make for Sunday school in your week, do it. Let me just admit, the next couple of weeks, I don't know what things are going to look like, but here's what I know. If I can't do anything but show up at church and stay for 1 hour for Sunday school, can you tarry with me for 1 hour? Yes, I can. So that is my plan, to be in Sunday school. Let me quickly get through the lesson so that I can get back to my Taurus outline. The lesson this week, depending on your publisher, is the Sabbath day. Or if you use UMI or Power for Living, your title is The Lord's Day. The Bible basis is Exodus chapter 20, verses 8 through 11, and chapter 31, verses 12 through 16. The Bible truth: the Lord gave the Sabbath as a day of rest and recommitment to holy living. The memory verse is chapter 20, verse 8. And the lesson aim is that we will explore the meaning of the Sabbath as expressed in Exodus, recognize and express the importance of Sabbath, and discover ways to practice Sabbath in the 21st century. So we're into a new quarter of Sunday school study. So hopefully if you are a person who has a book, you got your books ordered in time. Otherwise, I'm sure, because I tried to encourage you this summer, that you picked up one of these lovely commentaries so that you have your lessons up through July of next year, so you were good to go. So really looking at the Sabbath this week, and when you talk about the Sabbath, we'll talk about the elements because we are to keep it holy, but the biggest part of the Sabbath was taking the time to observe it. And so I really liked the intro lesson that was in the standard lesson commentary that talked about time out. And when you hear that phrase, time out, depending on what your circumstances are, if you're in a sporting event, timeout is okay because it gives you a break to go and gather with your team and kind of re-strategize and maybe get a sip of water and just kind of refuel for just a moment. And yet, if you're a 4-year-old and you hear timeout, your world has come to an end, because those are punishment words. That means you have done something, and probably for minutes that equate to your age, you have to go and sit in the corner and reflect on what you've done that caused you to be in timeout. So it's more of a punishment. Well, that's not how God would have us to view this somewhat of a time out that he allows us on a weekly basis in terms of the Sabbath. Let me just give you a quick headline. So in this quarter, for the next few lessons, we're going to be talking about sacred gifts and holy gatherings. So really we'll be looking at some of the traditions that God gave to his people that were going to be important in their lives. Now, sometimes tradition gets a negative stigma attached to it because people say, that's just doing the same thing that we've done, doing it the way we've done it. We never make any change. But sometimes not all traditions are bad. Last Thursday, it was not a bad tradition to follow my mother's family and enjoy Thanksgiving and the things that we do to remind and encourage each other about how special we are and how much we love each other and celebrate and value family. And there was nothing wrong with that table of food either. So that was a good tradition. From a society framework perspective, there are other types of traditions that we celebrate. There are wedding traditions, we have funeral traditions, and a lot of times those traditions can become ways that we actually end up witnessing to others because it is an outward expression of the Christian faith that we express, that we walk, that we talk, and that we live. So there are values in some elements of tradition. Now, about this idea with time, there are so many things that are precious to us. We think about people that are precious to us. There are things that are precious. But one of the most precious things that we have, quite frankly, is our time. I'm telling you, if I don't understand that any other week of my life, right now, time is my most precious commodity. It just seems like there are not enough hours in the day. There's so much that you want to get done. So time becomes incredibly precious. So looking at this idea of how can we set aside time that's proper, because our time does not just belong to us. Like, we think about this idea that God created us, and what did he create us for? Well, he really didn't create us just to be busy, busy, busy all the time. He wanted us to be productive. He wanted us to make a contribution. He wants that for us. But all of our time does not simply belong to us. And so the Sabbath, in Exodus chapter 20, we see that Exodus chapter 20 is actually inside, it's the 10 Commandments. And we think a lot about what we hear in the thou shall nots, and we think about the big ones. But inside of this, one of these commandments that we are to keep is remembering the Sabbath. By its definition means the ceasing, a weekly time that we are to cease from our regular pattern of activity, our regular cadence, to take the time and to remember and to focus on our Creator and His importance. I'm thinking this series of lessons will really push you to think about how you commit your time and how you can commit more quality time to God. So this week's lesson explores, again, the sacredness of our time. It pushes us to consider how we spend our time. I know that we're busy. We are the busiest people ever in life. We have our personal calendars. We've got family. If you have children, I'm an auntie and godmother, and I know the schedules that I get. If it's football season, if it's basketball season, there are practices, there are games. Girls have, practices. There are cheerleaders, there are gymnasts, girls and guys. It's just all over the board. So whether it's managing your own or trying to combine that with the needs of your family, thinking about very high demand jobs, if you're a student, thinking about your demands in school, and then even like social calendars, it really does become a lot. And I don't care, the most sophisticated planning system in the world just doesn't seem to always help us get everything that we need out of what we have going on. But this commandment reminds us that even with that, again, that all of our time is not our own. Again, we're inside of the 10 commandments. So we see, what is this commandment? There are two parts to it. We're to remember it and to keep it holy. So the fact that it says to remember means, remembrance means that I'm reminding you of something, which means this has been given to God's people before. It was actually in Genesis chapter 2 and in Exodus chapter 16 that the commandment to keep the Sabbath has already been given. Every now and then, we just need a reminder. So this is a reminder of observance and to make it holy. For many of us, that means that we set aside time. That's what our worship is about. It's not just, I'm always quick to say that Sunday mornings, no one is impressed because you get up and go to church on a Sunday morning. No one's impressed by that. When we get up and we make that sacrifice, it should always be as unto the Lord. It's a sacrifice of our time when we go into a corporate setting to offer our worship to Him and for Him to pour into us and to remind us of our created purpose. And we use that time as a fuel so that when we go back out, we are better able to be representatives who represent Him in the earth. And so it's not just that we have something that we're checking off of our calendar. There is value in our coming together. And I know that some people say, I don't have to go to church to worship. I don't have to go to church to have a relationship with God. Perhaps you don't, but there is value in that. And we are told to remember the Sabbath and to not only remember it, but to keep it holy. In other words, there ought to be something different, something special about the Sabbath. It's something different that you do when you observe that time. So think about birthdays and anniversaries. You have one every year, but every year you want that commemorated in some way. And so this Sabbath is a weekly commemoration. There is something that we're supposed to do, something that we're supposed to stamp it by, something that marks it and makes it different from everything else that we have going on in our lives. And so again, for many of us, that is a gathering and a place of public worship. It is where we separate our business from our time with God and really give Him that time of offering Him worship. It is a rest from other things. It is the rest from our own business when we give our attention to God. The Sabbath in Exodus 31:13 is mentioned as a sign between us and God. In other words, it speaks to our relationship with God. And if you think about it, if you have friends or maybe a sibling that you're really close to, there are probably, phrases or comments or, when I think about signs, there are things that are kind of familiar between you all because you spend that kind of time together. It's just like that with God. There is something that ought to mark our relationship because of the time that we spend with Him. There should be a conversation that is common between you and God because of the time that you spend with Him. So maybe someone knows you in your workplace or in your social settings and you're the person they know that goes to church. That's okay to be marked because that's actually a really cool sign. There is a sign between you and God of your relationship because you mark that Sabbath and you in some way keep it special. You keep it holy. Again, we have to recognize that time is not our own. It is a gift from God. So even in creation, when the Lord created the earth, he created, and on the seventh day he rested. He rested because his work was done. And so when he rested, it was the end of his work, but it was actually the first day for man. The Sabbath is not just something, again, that should be on our calendar. It's not the 2 hours for, let me watch my watch because I left my crock pot on at home, but it truly is time that is set apart and dedicated to the worship of God. There is important not only in that rest that we take spiritually to recharge, but there is such rest in just good natural rest. And I don't want to skip over that at all. Our worship enables us to rest before God, but we also need natural rest. And again, as a society, we're expected to go, go, go. Like we're always trying to do more with less. And in some cases, a lot of people consider rest to be an indulgent thing. Most people even actually feel guilty for just taking some time to rest. But if you go all of the time and never physically or ever mentally recharge, you will absolutely burn yourself out. I'll tag a friend in this video later, but she mentioned that she's worked for 20 months straight with no paid time off from work. We need to use that time. We need to recharge, take time, refuel ourselves. We need that time of rest so that we can be better agents and better points of productivity where we are and where we serve. So rest is a really important part of our lives. It doesn't matter what age you are. Of course, we like more rest as we get a little older, but no matter what your age is, rest is incredibly important to rejuvenate your mind, your body, and your spirit. Not getting enough rest puts you in a bad mood. It makes you negative in your productivity. It's getting to be winter time is coming up on us. Your immune system will be down. So trust me, just a little extra, you need your rest. So how do we keep the Sabbath? What do we do? How do we keep the Sabbath? Analytical types will love this. It's actually a mathematical equation. There's 6 days that you work and 1 day that's designed for rest and for worship and for rest. God gives us 7 days in a week and he only asks for one. I say that so often that people who say that I don't have time for church, there are how many hours in a week and you can't give up 2? Okay. All right. And then if I say Sunday school, whoa, because that's my time that I sleep in. There are how many hours in a week? And if we tack on an extra hour for Sunday school, you don't have 3 hours a week for God? Well, I suppose if that's how your math works out. But God desires this time of fellowship, and it truly is what fuels us and, again, allows us to be better representative of him in the earth. We evangelize, we serve, but worship is absolutely our highest priority, and worshiping God cannot be ignored. So how do we remember? Remember, it is our rest that readies us even for the next week. It is our worship that equips us actually to be able to work. We have to honor God in both our work and in our worship. If you think again back to Genesis chapter 2, even the Lord himself set aside time to rest. Here are my key learnings from the week. We think about stealing and killing and not committing adultery when we bring up the 10 commandments, but we must remember that worship, the Sabbath, keeping it holy, is a commandment. And when we fail to do so, we have broken a commandment. Secondly, rest is important. Take some time for yourself. Sleep, use your time off, but refuel and recharge. Third, we cannot find meaning in work without worship, and worship without work has no practical value. Fourth, be encouraged to look at your own spiritual disciplines and figure out what that looks like as you seek to live a life that honors God. And again, lastly, take some time to recuperate. It's going to do wonders for your day. It's going to give you an ability to recharge, to better deal with your commitments, and certainly make us better servants of God here in the kingdom. Listen, speaking of time, mine is so incredibly precious and valuable. I've got to get back to my Torts outline. Listen, tomorrow night, 9:00 p.m., please don't miss my brother, Superintendent Michael Payton, and the Illinois First Jurisdiction on the Saturday Night Sunday School line, 605-475-3235, access code 170045. I've got to run. Have a super fantastic rest of the week, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.